Hockey has been a cornerstone of Canadian culture for over 150 years. It's more than just a game, it's a national identity, a source of pride, and a way of life for millions. From backyard rinks to NHL superstars, hockey has always been a unifying force in Canada. But lately, something troubling has been happening. The sport that once defined Canada is facing a steep decline, especially among the nation's youth. Fewer and fewer kids are choosing to play hockey, viewership is steadily declining, and the financial burden of participation has become overwhelming for the average Canadian family. Let's start with the numbers, and they paint a grim picture. Back in 2010, over 523,000 kids under the age of 18 were playing organized hockey in Canada, according to Hockey Canada. But by 2022, that number had dropped dramatically to just over 340,000. This represents a staggering 35% decline in participation in just over a decade. While the world endured unprecedented challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic, which no doubt disrupted youth sports participation globally, the decline in Canadian hockey began long before 2020. In fact, this downward trend highlights deeper, systemic issues in the sport that have been building for years. Although 2023 brought a slight rebound in participation, with 360,000 youth players registered, those numbers are still 15% lower than pre-pandemic levels, a clear indication that hockey in Canada is struggling to regain its footing. Ed Kinnelly, CEO of Bauer, confirmed this shift, stating that the company's biggest customer base is now American youth players and their families. This change signals a broader trend. Hockey, once dominated by its Canadian roots, is now thriving in a country that has historically favored sports like football, basketball, and baseball. So, what's driving this disparity? A big part of the story is accessibility. In the United States, hockey programs have taken deliberate steps to make the sport more inclusive and affordable, offering flexible options for families of all income levels. In contrast, Canada's high costs for equipment, ice time, and travel are pricing many families out of the game. On average, parents spend about $4,478 per child each year to keep them in the game. This figure can skyrocket to $7,371 annually for older kids competing in higher level leagues. Over the course of a child's hockey journey from age 6 to 17, the cumulative cost exceeds 130,000 Canadian dollars. And that's not even counting extras like travel and off-season training. And these are just rough estimates. The reality of the situation can be and is a lot more expensive. Imagine how many more talents we would have if the game was much more accessible. When you compare these costs to other popular sports like soccer or basketball, the disparity becomes even more glaring. A soccer ball or basketball costs only a fraction of what even the most basic hockey equipment does. A decent youth hockey stick starts at around 70 Canadian dollars, but many kids want the high-performance models that can go up to 300 Canadian dollars or more. Hockey skates. Those can set parents back anywhere from 500 Canadian dollars for mid-range models to 1,000 Canadian dollars for top-tier options, and that's not even all the gear. You need hundreds more for protective gear, jerseys, and the maintenance of the gear. And then there's the goalie gear, an entirely separate beast. Outfitting a young goaltender with the necessary pads, helmet, and skates can easily exceed 1,500 Canadian dollars, with some setups costing much more. But the expenses don't stop at equipment. Ice time is another major cost factor. Renting an indoor rink for just 1 or 2 hours can cost hundreds of dollars. For leagues and community programs, these costs are often passed down to families through registration fees, making participation even more expensive. With only 2,860 indoor rinks across Canada, far fewer than what's needed to meet demand, competition for rink time is fierce. This limited availability drives up prices even further, putting additional strain on families. Contrast this with sports like soccer and basketball, which require far less equipment and minimal facility use. For soccer, a pair of cleats, shin guards, and a ball are often all that's needed. Even with league fees, the total cost is significantly lower. Similarly, basketball only requires a ball and access to a local court, many of which are free to use. These sports also tend to have more flexible schedules, allowing families to participate without the time and financial burdens of hockey. In general, it just seems so much easier to put your kids in soccer than hockey. Another issue of Canadian hockey decline is the issues with Canada's demographic. Canada's population is aging rapidly. As of 2023, 18.9% of the population was 65 or older, and projections indicate this figure could reach over 23% by 2030. This demographic change means fewer young people are available to participate in youth hockey leagues. The aging population contributes to a decline in demand for community rinks, which are essential for youth hockey development. Many small towns with aging populations struggle to justify the operational costs of ice rinks when their primary users, young families, are fewer in number. In smaller communities where hockey has historically thrived, the closure of rinks is a visible sign of demographic shift. Immigration, while mitigating some labor shortages, also influences hockey's decline. Newcomers to Canada often come from countries where hockey is not a popular sport. Combined with an aging native population, this results in a diminished pool of participants and spectators. Beyond costs and demographics, hockey's demanding schedule is another deterrent. Competitive hockey often requires early morning or late night practices, year-round training, and frequent travel. This intense time commitment can be overwhelming for families juggling work, school, and other activities. In contrast, sports like soccer and basketball offer more flexible schedules and lower time demands. For parents, this makes them a more practical choice, especially when balancing multiple kids' activities. While hockey is facing challenges in Canada, the sport is thriving south of the border. The United States has invested heavily in making hockey accessible, particularly in non-traditional markets. Programs like USA Hockey's Try Hockey for Free initiative and the NHL's outreach efforts in urban areas have lowered barriers to entry and increased participation. In the United States, the growth of hockey is also tied to the success of NHL teams in states like California and Florida, where the game was once considered a niche sport. Star players from diverse backgrounds, like Austin Matthews from Arizona, have inspired a new generation of fans and players. By contrast, Canada has struggled to adapt its hockey culture to modern realities. Limited rink availability, high costs, and a focus on competitive leagues over recreational play have created an environment where only the wealthiest families can afford to participate. Compounding these challenges is a growing sentiment among American NHL players to avoid playing for Canadian teams. Factors influencing this reluctance include higher tax rates, increased media scrutiny.
Would you like to expand on that?
No, you can do that. You know everything.
Why are you so pissy, Leon? Why are you so pissy?
I'm not. I'm just answering your...
Yeah, you are. Whenever I ask you a question.
I gave you an answer.
Not a very good one.
Okay.
In Canadian diehard franchise culture, you're on top of the world when you're winning. But the moment you start losing, the fans and media are relentlessly on your back. Reports suggest that players perceive life in U.S. cities as less stressful compared to the intense media environment in Canada. Additionally, financial considerations play a role. Teams in low or no tax states like Florida, Texas, and Nevada can offer more attractive net salaries, making them more appealing destinations for players. This combination of cultural, financial, and logistical challenges has not only stunted hockey's growth in Canada, but also impacted the competitiveness of Canadian NHL teams, further highlighting the widening gap between the state of the sport on either side of the border. However, the NHL has challenges on its own. Recent data indicates a significant drop in NHL viewership. For instance, the opening night of the current season averaged 559,000 viewers, marking a 39% decline from the previous year. The NHL faces stiff competition from other major sports leagues, notably the NFL and NBA. This competitive landscape makes it challenging for the NHL to capture and retain a broad audience. Broadcast blackouts in major markets have prevented local fans from watching games, negatively impacting national viewership numbers. These blackouts can frustrate fans and discourage viewership and popularity in the league. Watching professional hockey serves as a significant source of inspiration for youth participation. When local NHL games are blacked out, aspiring players lose an opportunity to connect with role models and learn from their performances. Over time, this reduces the influence of the NHL in motivating children to take up the sport. weakening the pipeline of talent and grassroots engagement. While hockey remains a defining part of Canadian culture, the challenges it faces today demand serious reflection and action. From the rising costs of participation, the dwindling youth engagement, and the NHL's struggle to retain viewership, the sport is at a crossroads. Yet, despite these challenges, the love for hockey runs deep in Canada, and there's no shortage of passion or potential solutions. Whether it's addressing accessibility, embracing diversity, or finding new ways to connect with fans, the future of hockey in Canada depends on adapting to modern realities while staying true to its roots. The question remains, can Canada reclaim its place as the heart of the hockey world, or will the sport continue to shift south of the border? Only time will tell. Thank you so much for watching. This video took quite a bit of time to put together, so if you enjoyed it or found it thought-provoking, subscribing to the channel would mean the world to me. It's completely free, and you can change your mind at any time. Remember, everything I shared here is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Do you agree? Disagree? Have ideas of your own? Let's have a conversation about it. Thanks again for your time and support, and I'll see you in the next video.